Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, so we're going to get started. So, good afternoon and welcome to The Game Hers and Belongs Professional Bootcamp, where we'll be discussing all things collegiate gaming from women in esports to how you can prepare yourself to be successful in this industry. My name is Ashlyn J. Wilson, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. Today, we have three amazing special guests who are excited about our discussion, and they are very, very passionate about what they do, and they're happy to give you guys some insight today. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to have all of our speakers just introduce themselves and just share a little bit about what you do. Kyla? Yeah.
Sure, I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyla Kennedy, and I'm the Director of Esports for Level Next at Learfield. We are the first officially licensed collegiate esports league in the country, and we welcome any and all students to compete in our national and local events. And so just a quick overview about myself. I entered into, the industry via marketing and promotions. I worked on McDonald's Happy Meal business on the toy and digital side. Then I went over to 6 Foot, a small video game publisher, where I led publishing efforts for 3 of our global game titles, Grey Goo, Rhyme, and Dreadnought. And then I made my way over to esports, collegiate esports. So I worked at Mainline, a tournament operator and tech platform, and now I'm at Level Next. So super excited to be here and excited to talk about how we can increase female participation in this space. So, hello.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll go next. I'm Sari, Kitelyn. I oversee the esports program at Full Sail University. I've been at Full Sail about 16 years now at this point, and have been building our esports program since about 2015. Really excited to be here and kind of chat with everybody. For those that don't know, Full Sail is a university in Central Florida that focuses on degree programs in the entertainment, media, arts, and technology industries. So we've been having grads enter the esports space for career-wise for quite some time. And that's the main focus of our esports program there, is combining the passion that people have for esports and gaming with career paths and career opportunities that they could attain once they graduate from college.
Excellent. And that leaves me. So Neal Tilley from Cisco. I'm part of the esports team at Cisco. We support sport media entertainment and the education collegiate space. So just I've been at Cisco about 6 years, but I've been a gamer since I was very small. That's just, I just don't want to give my age away. But at Cisco, we're behind the scenes. Okay, so we support some of the biggest, if not the biggest, esports tournaments, players, teams in the world in terms of connectivity, low latency, broadcast networks, all those sort of things that bring this whole world together. And obviously, our most significant is the work we do with our partners like Riot Games with League of Legends and Valorant, and of course all of the other big esports platforms that use our networks. And also, I lead the collegiate esports space for Cisco, so I work with all the university programs across the country, and if not across the world, building codification and looking at all the careers that education can, inside of an esports sector, can feed to. So it's great to be here. Can't wait to talk about these topics.
Yes, awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. And to our audience, if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to ask them in the chat box, and we will answer them after our guest speakers have spoken. But we're going to just go ahead and get right into it. So the first question that I have is directed towards Sari. So the question is, what are your recommendations on getting into the industry as it relates to the growth of collegiate esports?
Sure. It's actually Sari, just to, that's okay. I'm just going to start saying it because everybody calls me Sari. So I'm going to start standing up for myself. So careers in esports, honestly, is a fascinating landscape, and it's really great to kind of have out there. The biggest thing that I always start with, and not to squash any dreams, but loving esports and being passionate about esports is not enough for a career in esports, but it is a wonderful place to start. You are going to need education, you are going to need experience, and you're going to want to make sure that you understand that the world that you're passionate about, the esports and gaming space that you're passionate about, is an industry in and of itself and has careers across the board. We're not just talking pro players, while that is an awesome place to be. Accounting and public relations and finance and organization and talent management and operations and live event production all exist within this esports space. So really what I think you want to do is you're taking your passion that you have for esports and gaming and trying to figure out what your natural what you're drawn to from an educational perspective, and then work together to figure out how those two worlds blend in and of itself. A lot of people do kind of reference esports as like a vertical. I never do. I don't. I consider esports an evolution of the entertainment industry. So every job that you've seen that exists in the current entertainment spaces exists within esports, and the opportunities are endless. Starting, focusing, volunteering, and really making sure that you figure out where that niche is and where that path is, and familiarizing yourself with the communities and the opportunities early is really a great place to start for you to kind of get yourself going, get yourself moving throughout the esports space and on your way into a career.
Awesome. Thank you for answering. And Neal and Kyla, if you guys ever have any suggestions or feedback after, you guys can answer as well.
I'd like, I know Kyla will probably have something around, I mean, especially the careers inside things like the tournament direction and all that sort of thing, I think is a new adjacent opportunity but I think, you know, on top of what you see in terms of just enjoying playing games and going to a college and saying, is there a club? What you really have is all these adjacent careers that you can go into a collegiate system and actually test out and learn and train in areas that are adjacent to the esports gaming industry. So there's so many examples of that where we see, say, statistics and data science, we see networking, obviously my field, you know, infrastructure, quality of service, all that engineering and optimization. These are all adjacencies that you can take after the collegiate esports space and go into other industries. So I think you're absolutely right. It's not just about getting into the esports and gaming industry. It's also that it gives you a very good foundation. But I'd also like to say that you have an audience inside the collegiate system, right? You have content creators, you have a chance to simulate what it's like to be in a professional team or a professional environment. And so that's why it's got a huge audience watching from more than just the alum and the existing students. So I think it's a great base to grow your followers or grow your experience. I don't know if you agree, Kyla.
Yeah, no, definitely. And to add on to that, when we're looking at hiring entry-level positions, we look at what you did on campus within esports or in the gaming space. So if you're applying to a marketing job, you know, did you help with the social media presence for your club or your program? Or if you're hiring to be a broadcast or production assistant, you know, did you help with your clubs or programs broadcast, you know? And so we look to see what type of activities you do. And so I always say that, you know, if a lot of times you don't know really what you want to do early in your college career, but, you know, when you're a junior, you should be looking at job descriptions to see some of the things that they're asking for. And then in connecting the dots, look at how you can add value to your programs or your clubs on campus, and that, you know, in your junior and senior year to set you up for success when you go to apply to jobs as a senior.
Most definitely. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that's really, really important to take from this. And I don't know about Full Sail University, but I'm sure this is true that, you know, when you think about the broadcast programs, the media, TV, film, all those just different careers, you know, what we had coming into the last 2 or 3 years was pretty much you were either in game development, game testing, or you're a really good player. So the idea that when you go into look into these industries and you look at esports, you know, the esports industry and the gaming industry is looking at universities like Full Sail for those experiences: broadcast engineering, you know, tournament direction, you know, merchandise and branding. I mean, there's so many elements. So the industry itself, the gaming industry, and this is revolutionized by esports, but also esports is looking at the university as a flow, as a kind of a feeder, a supply chain of new talent. I'm sure Full Sail agrees with me in their design of their curriculum.
Yeah, sure. For us, actually, we have not seen specifically game development folks going into the gaming space for, definitely years. We've been seeing the behind the scenes and the business supporting opportunities that there are out there. I think that's a misconception that I would love to help break, is that game jobs get game degree programs. There are a ton of amazing job opportunities for those that are focusing game design and game development and game art within the publisher space and beyond, both small independent studios and the large scale studios. And I would never want anyone to look away from that. But the opportunities have been, endless. We have grads from 10 years ago that are vice president GM for professional esports organizations right now. We have folks working from the communication side and talent management that have graduated for quite some time. The space is there. It's not really, again, it's not really a vertical. It's definitely a cohesive part of the entertainment industry. And anything that you can see that would exist in another industry exists within gaming and esports. It's just a matter of finding what it is that you want to do. There's the obvious ones like broadcast and forward-facing communications, but there's so much that happens behind the scenes, and there's so much work there that builds and supports this industry that might not necessarily be forward-facing. And so I think it's that fact of, if you don't yet know maybe which area you want to go in, but this is something passionate about, like what Kyla was saying, just start getting experience and start really experience on your college campus. The two areas I always recommend for anybody that's like, I know I want to do something in esports, but I have no idea what, start with chat moderation, tournament organization. Those are two things that everybody needs. Volunteer organizations need, people need, and that is a fast and hard lesson, especially chat moderation or anything in community management. Those types of experiences will go far and will give you a really good understanding of things that exist within the esports space. So that's usually a good, all right, I want to start somewhere. I want to see something. What do I do? Every Discord needs moderators. So volunteer and see what they can do. Try to pick up a Twitch role for an event, even if it's a small one, and volunteer at LANs. They always need help, and you'll get a really fast exposure.
Awesome. Very well put. Thank you all for your input. But we're going to just move right next to the next question, and this will be directed towards Kyla. So females represent nearly half of gamers in participation, and yet we only see about 17% who are actually in the gaming industry. If you could just speak on why you feel like this might be existing, especially since we are in a progressive society for women, and how can we change this issue?
Yes, this is a great question, and it's something that I chew on daily. It keeps me up at night. But I think the first thing that we have to do is look at the stats. So Ashlyn, like you mentioned, nearly half of gamers are women, and yet only 17% of us are represented in the industry from a professional perspective. So right there's a gap. And then when you drill down to esports, over 30% of females, view esports. They tune in, they watch, and 35% of us play esports titles, and yet we still see such low participation from female players in competitive events. And so then you have to ask yourself questions like, well, is it because we're not interested and passionate about it? We know that's not true. Is it because we want to be a more passive participant and not a competitive player? We know that's not true either. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, are there factors that make us inferior to our male counterparts? And there's plenty of research that shows that there are no biological factors that say there's one gender or sex that's better at playing video games competitively than the other. And so when you consider all of that data and that info and those stats, then you have to realize that the answer is more insidious, and it's a cultural thing, right? You have stereotypes, you have generalizations, gender roles, misogyny, harassment, that kind of has seeped into our culture in the collegiate space, but also on a professional level. But since we're focusing on the collegiate space, I like to look at it in three different ways. Kind of one is awareness. So do female gamers know that these gaming organizations, these clubs, these programs exist on campus? So one of the things that we try to do at Level Next is build and create more awareness that these programs exist. But then once we funnel them into these programs or help support the schools, you know, there is this whole minority status. When you're a minority coming into a group, you know, you do feel it does impact your level of confidence and your ability to perform and influence others around you in those groups. And so how can we help these programs create more initiatives, policies, cultures that are more inclusive and diverse? Because we can get more women into these clubs, especially in leadership positions, then those people then graduate and go on and lead companies in the industry. And so it's kind of like this really interesting ecosystem and cycle. And then lastly, we have to look at the toxic cultures that exist in competitive gaming and gaming in general. I mean, it's sad that we can't, like, I can't use a female identifying gamer tag in game because right away I know I will see harassment, or people will assume that I can't play competitively, or I'm going to bring the team down, or I'm just going to be a healer or supporter. And there's all these stereotypes that we have to fight. And so I guess really it's just strengthening the pipeline. We're bringing women into these collegiate leadership positions, and then they can open the door wider for other women who are coming up, like who are in high school or middle school, and then we can get them into the professional side of the pipeline. So in our industry, so that we have seats at the table where we're making policies where we moderate these toxic environments more fiercely, or we advocate for women more strongly. And so I guess that's how I look at it.
I love that. Honestly, I feel like hearing you talk continues to just give hope to me that with leaders like you in the space that are, you know, paving the way and building inclusive communities, and with the right set of focus, that's really what we need. We need more Kyla. So we need more people like you. So, but that makes me feel like you hit the nail on the head, and it feels really good to hear you say that.
Yeah, I completely echo that. And I think, you know, you absolutely, you know, you sort of simplified it to the point which is really crucial, which is if we think about 83% of teenage girls play video games, and then the idea that by that time that filters through to a professional esports gaming environment is 17%, if not low, you know, maybe 20%, if, you know, depends on the studies. But that means that that we have two big problems, right? And that is, from an awareness perspective, the awareness doesn't come until it's too late, from a K through 12 to a higher education, to the professional industry. And we're not doing enough at the early stages to ensure that those teenage girls that are playing games see a career, see a success, see that they are respected. And of course, you know, the discrimination and harassment that they get in, you know, just the public arena of playing games is where we have to also start, because most parents, most support structures will look at that and say, yeah, you don't want to go into that field, you know. And so, you know, we have to do more. And I think the Gamers is a great organization to help us there. And we've set up chapters, we've helped introduce them. We've just done a Girls in ICT Day with women in STEM, and, you know, all around gaming and esports and IT. And so if we can get that into the schools and start showing them exactly all these opportunities, all these different careers that women can go into early enough, then we give ourselves a better chance of growing that female representation. And truthfully, you know, esports, the reason why I'm so passionate about esports is because it is so inclusive. You know, from a diversity, equality, and inclusion point of view, there's nothing like it in sport, in you know, skills, interests, anything. You know, it does not preclude anyone, and it is also non-gender specific. And also, when we look at IT, it is also a non-gender specific environment. And so these two worlds, that's why it's so crucial to me working with the, you know, from the foundations, the networking, the latency, all those elements, all those careers that are tied to gaming and esports. But the fact is that you know, what we look at is, if you are a girl or a woman at looking at careers, you should not be turned off by gaming and esports and leadership. because I think that's probably one of the biggest opportunities right now. And I think it's down to leadership. It's also down to, and I hate to say this as the man in this panel, this is exactly what it should be. It should be that the leaders, everybody should be looking at themselves and saying, why is this an issue, right? And it comes from awareness. So I agree with that completely.
I think too, there's the other side as well, which is combating toxic behavior and learning how to combat toxic behavior. So I 100% agree with Neal on everything that we're saying, and like creating these opportunities for women in these safe spaces and doing it earlier. I absolutely love that. I think that we also, especially from a leadership perspective, we have an obligation to fix understanding of what toxic behavior is. Far too often, I do panels and it's like women in gaming, women in esports, diversity in esports, accessibility in esports. And the only people there are people that look like me. And I love that. And I think we all joining together to help pave those ways is super important. But I also think on the flip side, I like to think that a lot of it is unintentional, microaggressions, learned behavior over time. And I think that, us banding together to, yes, support marginalized communities that are in the space, and also educate those that might be making it more difficult for marginalized communities or women to continue this plight past their youth, I think can really help change the difference as a whole. And I like that we're all here together. I love that the Game Hers is focusing on it. And I like that that's something that we all want to take an active approach to.
Yes, I most definitely agree. And I feel like a lot of times these constructs can be tackled early on, like when we're in elementary school and middle school. I feel like all of that stuff, like a lot of the things that society puts in children today, kind of contributes to how it plays out even in esports and in our society in general. So I do agree with what you guys are saying. But I do kind of want to tie this into the next question. And everyone, of course, you guys can answer this, but I want to know, sorry, kind of skipping through the structure, but I want to know how we can allow people who are interested in esports to maintain a healthy work-life balance, especially considering, how sometimes women who are interested in esports are playing in esports. A lot of times they experience, sexism, and a lot of times they're judged based on their gender and not their performance. So how can we kind of make sure that students have a healthy mental capacity to work in these highly competitive environments?
From the student perspective, I'll say it's tough. It is heartbreaking because it exists as recently with us as a couple of weeks ago. And I do think things are improving, but it is definitely alive and present. The thing that I love so much, that just an incident that happened with us at Full Sail during a Call of Duty match, is they just knew, again, like you guys said, by gamer tag, that it was a female and attacked. It didn't matter what she did. It didn't matter what she said. She got attacked by casters. And it was disgusting, quite honestly. And what I love the most is that the rest of the Call of Duty team that we have on campus rallied around her, shut this down. Unacceptable, took clips, took proof, really wanted to make sure they stuck to their guns. They didn't engage, but they were strong, and they surrounded her, and they made sure that we knew it was, unacceptable. And as soon as the match ends, they send me the clips. They say, here's what we need to do. I reach back out to the other school. We handled it abruptly. The casters were fired. And we have to take action. And there's the emotional support component and then the action component. And we have to, as leaders, we have to continue to show people that are going through this that I hear you and I'm going to do something about it. And the more that they see that and the more that they feel that, the better those opportunities come. And honestly, from the other side, the more that consequences exist for those that are putting this pressure on marginalized groups or doing the attacking, then that's the only way we're going to really continue to see change. So it's like a multi-step thing. There's the emotional support that is absolutely 100% needed, but both to the marginalized communities and to those that are working with them, and to make sure if you're not invested in improving this space moving forward, we're not interested in having you as a part of our team. So that's just as important to me as it is winning a match. So that's just, it's we all have to do it together, and we all have our obligations into starting to, I guess, address it and make those spaces safe.
Yeah, and real quickly, I completely agree, especially on the emotional support. because, you know, you can only take so much harassment, you know, until you're like, I'm done with this. This is not worth it. But having groups like the Gamehers, like the Collegiate Gameher community in Discord, where you have a community who has your back, and it's like, no, 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 we see you, we hear you, we got you, keep fighting. I think that's so important, to have your people there supporting you, so that you can push through it, stay, you're retained in this culture, and then that way you can help change it. And so
I think
the emotional piece is important.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just to add, this is kind of going full circle, full circle, is that this is where new careers are coming in, because we have the technology to lexically scan Discord in live stream. We actually are able to use analytics to pinpoint IP address, console. Game integrity is one of the biggest areas of investment that needs to take place. And the idea of codification and standards and compliance has to start in the earliest part of esports and gaming, i.e. in the schools. We have PEGI, we have restrictions on what types of games are in the tournament. But then, of course, as we get to collegiate, you know, anybody can put a university tag at the front of their team and go play in a tournament, which that shouldn't, you know, that was allowed because the clubs were run by students, and just, you know, anybody could set up a team. But now we need to codify and we need to regulate, because we need to start ensuring that this sort of environment is protected, because we wouldn't expect an ESPN broadcaster to start doing the sort of things that we see in some of these tournaments. And again, tournament direction, tournament organizations are starting to look at that technology. And of course, from our point of view, Cisco is investing in that sort of ability to shut it down, even going into things like automatic timeouts if they spot something being said inside of the game, so that they can call just like they would in professional sports, stop the game and say, hey, this is not acceptable. And if you do that enough, it doesn't matter any type of discrimination, any type of harassment, it is stopping the flow of content. And that's exactly why they think that it's good to do it, because they think they're not, you can't spot them, and they think it's impacting the game. So I think it's absolutely where we need to invest. And I think that potentially could be a career for you out there if you're wanting to get into gaming and esports, is game integrity. I think many of the publishers, the tournament organizers, and also the teams themselves are looking at making sure. And again, mental health wise, get esports and gaming is so fantastic. It's so fantastic for supporting people with anxiety, people with agoraphobia, people with issues around social issues and recognizing social tags. So we want them to be playing. We want them because this is an opportunity that they wouldn't have got necessarily in the in physical sports or physical entertainment, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big opportunity to go and innovate and make sure that this place, that esports is a safe place for all, and specifically, regulate. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely. And I second that, Z Melton, it is refreshing to hear that people are being held accountable. And I think that can play also into how people can ensure that their mental health is where it needs to be when they are playing these games. But next question, directed towards Neal. I do want to know, so what skills and areas should people who are interested in seeking careers in the industry focus on to set themselves up for a successful career path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question. And I think, I'll answer it from my expertise, which is what I call the field of play. Okay, so Cisco and networking, broadcast engineering and optimization, that's what we call the field of play for esports. When we're working with Riot Games for League of Legends tournaments, we're absolutely passionate about latency, right? Lowest possible latency, highest possible availability. And that creates a quality for everything from the gameplay. It creates the feel for the players that latency is so low that their hand-eye coordination is being matched by the environment, but also then the broadcast environment. So having being fanatical about latency, low latency, is also something that you can take on into other careers. And then the other thing I would talk about is, from some skills that really are opening up inside of the esports arena, professionally and in collegiate is data scientists, because look at the sports books and the statistics that are that are kind of hovering around the esports world, and the reason for that is because there's so much statistics involved in gaming and esports, and it feeds the populace in terms of interest, trying to analyze, trying to predict, trying to strategize. And so if you have a data scientist type field, or you're looking in that and from a university perspective, I almost say that you could walk straight up to an esports team inside of any university and say, hey, I'm a statistician, I'm a data analytics person, and you will get straight into the role, because they need more eyes on that information. And of course, from a broadcast perspective, I think there's and I completely agree with the idea that esports is revolutionizing the broadcast media industry. So there's going to be a huge gap in how many resources there are out there to deal with just the explosion of capture devices, streaming. And we just ran the Super Bowl, and what we saw there was over 32 terabits of data pulled through the wireless network inside the stadium. That's a world record. But what people don't know is the very next week we held a concert for a band, and they broke that record. And the reason they broke that record was because everybody in the audience was live streaming the experience. And that's what we see in every esports event, every esports tournament. But on top of that, we've got gameplay, we've got live streaming, we've got people doing their own casting, their own Twitch feeds, etc. So that explosion of data means there's a huge opportunity in the broadcast media space and helping with optimization. So, and again, I feel like this. I'm so excited for this industry, for the whole opportunity that's out there, and you don't need to kind of overthink it. Go look in these sort of areas. I don't know if Kyla, you agree, and then what on top of that, tournaments and management.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. There are so many ways to get into esports, no matter what your interest and passion is. Like if you're into numbers and you want to be an accountant, what we talked about, or the marketing side or the networking side. There's just so many angles, and because it's evolving so rapidly, and these clubs and programs need the help, there's a lot of opportunity for you to really dive in and get your hands dirty and get that experience you need to set you up for success when you enter into the industry. And so, again, a lot of entry-level positions, I mean, we look for people who are responsive, people who've proven that they're interested in this space through their volunteer work, or, maybe apply to some ambassadorships like what we have at Level Next. Another thing is a lot of professionals are interested in helping students out. So if you go on LinkedIn and you see someone in a role that you want to aspire to, if you reach out to them more times than not, they'll be like, sure, I'll talk to you for 30 minutes, because they do want to help get more students into this industry. So there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. You just got to have the grit and the tenacity and the will to do those things.
All right. Okay. Does anyone else want to answer, or we good?
I think that they covered it awesomely. I 100% agree. And, again, get yourself started, and there's plenty of opportunity to figure out what you want to do. But do it, join the Discords, enter the communities. It's there. And I said this the other day, but I really agree. If you're not comfortable yet, for those that are more introverted and are figuring it out, there's no shame in being a lurker. So start by lurking and see what's out there. Watch people interact, watch them, and slowly and surely you'll take baby steps and you'll figure out where you want to go.
Yes.
Awesome. You guys give great advice. So just to kind of close out, did you guys want to share any advice that you have, just as far as your career path, or anything you guys want to share with our audience?
I don't mind jumping in. I think from a I kind of skirt around some of our personal sort of roadblocks mentally, right? You know, our fear is our biggest problem, right? Sometimes we fear that, you know, do I really want to go down that direction? Do I really want, you know, is there really a place for me? And there's so many things that come to us. And, you know, and speaking from working with a lot of charities around dyslexia, ADHD, you know, agoraphobia, all these sort of areas, I think, you know, one of the advices is that actually, you know, there's so many good things come from this digital augmented sort of reality that we can go to inside of gaming and esports. It's such a leveler, you know, I have terrible dyslexia, which means that, you know, it took me until the digital era to go get my degree, get into industry, and feel confident that I could go into this space and talk about it. And inside of esports, you know, I recently did a tournament in Texas with 32 school districts. And the amount of people that were supporting it, the amount of people that were around it, helping set up, creating the experience, the environment, the teams that came from all the high schools and these school districts. And then while I was there, the parents that came to me and said, my son and my daughter, you know nothing about esports. They know nothing. They don't have it at home, but they are completely fascinated with it. And the son came to me, he had ADHD, and he said, I want to go into IT and I want to go into esports. And the idea that we can, you know, that esports is now in that conversation. And so my advice is that, you know, not just lurk, but be weird, be different, right? Think differently, and don't worry about it, because it's such a great industry to level, and it's so inclusive, and we need to embrace it.
Yeah, and I've two quick, I guess, simple advice. But one, someone close to me said that you can't see around corners, so you don't know what's to come, and so you have to kind of do your best job today. So whatever it is that you, even if it's a small task or at a small level, do your best, because you have no idea who's watching. And then say yes to opportunity, even if it pushes you out of your comfort zone. That's where you grow, and that's where you find even more opportunities. So Ashlyn, if you don't mind, I'm going to use you as an example. As a college student, you know, you're moderating this panel, you're doing a fantastic job, and you know, you never know who's watching. Maybe someone's like, oh man, I want to reach out to her and talk to her more about an opportunity. So yes, I guess those would be my two very quick points of advice.
I love that. I'll add on top of it, because everybody else covered pretty much everything, and it's great. Just always remember that someone else doing what you are doing or what you want to do is not your competitor. They're your ally. So just understand how far you get from just learning from other people, supporting each other, lifting each other up. There's a lot of opportunity out here. It's a really big space. We all can learn something from each other. There's room for everybody. The whole concept of a rising tide lifts all boats is truer in esports than anywhere else. Learn what makes us different and support each other. We'll all get there together.
Very beautifully said. That was really good. But now we're just going to open up the floor for our audience to ask some questions. And I know we did have some questions that were in the chat. So we'll just start with the first one by Nerdy Argon 1. I need to know if your advice on how to get into a college that is financially struggling on getting into a college to receive hand-on-hand experience. Yeah, so if you guys want to.
I think what we're asking for, if I can understand correctly, is we might not have the financial means to get into a college that has a foundation in esports, but we really want to get going in there. And that is, I think, a common concern with multiple industries that are all happening out there. I think to hammer home what we said earlier on is to know that there are jobs in every industry in esports. So find the college that's right for you. If the college has an esports program, awesome. If they don't, that's not a limit to you. So if it means we're starting, or every college can provide you opportunities, tech schools, community colleges, everything out there. Find the one that works for you and get to know your communities. So there's a lot that can happen on college campuses that can get you experiences. There's also a lot that happen in person at LANs, online and virtual tournaments and online tournaments. There's a ton of communities out there that relate themselves to esports. So focus on your education first. Find the education that really fits right for you. If they have opportunities for esports and gaming, careers there, awesome. If they don't, start looking out there. DreamHack happens 17,000 times a year. It feels like there's, at every PAX is always looking for volunteers. There's going to be something around your area. And if there isn't, or you're not comfortable with that, there's a ton of things online. Just follow the big publishers and sign up for volunteer opportunities.
I would just add to that there's also, because we've seen, only 2 years ago, there was only 55 scholarships in the entire United States university system for anything to do with gaming esports, tied to esports. There's obviously gaming stuff, and now we see a glut, right? We see a huge growth in that. And I think research, my advice is to go research, and don't necessarily look at the easy to go to colleges, universities. Go and look at community colleges, go look at liberal arts, go look at universities that you might not have originally looked at, because I think they are very keen to get programs up and running, and they will have scholarships, and a lot more scholarships are coming through. So that might help you from the financial perspective.
Awesome. Thank you guys for answering that. So moving on to the next question, what tips would you give for someone who wants to get into esport experience, but have graduated and aren't in the collegiate space?
I think it's just kind of what we've been saying is, if you can volunteer, there's so many organizations, publishers, events, tournaments that need volunteers. So if you can gain experience that way, then you can kind of position yourself for these, professional opportunities, whether they're entry level or, like we said, chat moderation, tournament organization, and administration. But yeah, getting experience via the volunteer route would be pretty powerful.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I underscore that one. I think, and also go look at the teams, the professional teams and the professional programs, because they're all investing in outreach. Evil Geniuses have a fantastic outreach program. FaZe Clan has got, has created some curriculum. There's also, and I think that also when you look at, it's a little bit of a wild west when it comes to conferences and brackets and all this sort of all the different sort of feeders. And I think, to your point, Kyla, that's a great opportunity. So if you are already a graduate and you're not in the collegiate space, go look at the different organizers and see where the local professional and collegiate tournaments are in live, and go and offer to support it, help with being a steward, help with the help support them. And I think you'll find, just like any industry, you'll see opportunities to show your skills to get in there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that we've been talking about in regards to like volunteers and those opportunities. The other thing I would say too, and the pro teams are doing a phenomenal job out there, find a mentorship program. There's a ton of those. Find a mentor, get involved, get connected. A really great pathway is to find a good mentor and then slowly become a good mentor, so you can put somebody else in your place behind you. But even if you have a full-time job and you're working 40 hours a week, there's the mentorship programs work great. You do them on your own time. You find a way to connect with somebody, and you can slowly start growing yourself into the new area that you want to pursue.
Perfect. Thank you guys all for sharing that.